Today, we're going to start with a new unit called function. Functions are really powerful primitive. So the whole function, the main benefit of the function is really code reuse. Okay. So think of this as an analogy, dishwashing. So you wash dishes all the time. Okay. You're tired of it. You are washing dishes, like too many dishes. And then what is the thing to do? Or you have to create a gadget or machine, dishwasher, right? So something similar happens in coding. So you're writing so many times the same code, and it's tedious. Okay, so what is the thing to do? You have to make a gadget, and that's basically function. So now you make some big gadget, and then all these things will be just going through the gadget, and then gadget will do something, and then just put the output. Okay, that's function. For example, especially you have a double variable, and you got filled out double. Let's say now a is this value. Okay, and I want to square root. Okay, I want to get a square root of a. Okay, one way is, well, find out how to do square root, computing the square root, and then write the code for that concept and then get it. But do you want to? Probably this, computing the square root, happens many times throughout the history. Some person probably wrote some gadget, wrote some function there. Okay, and fortunately, that's the case. So actually, the standard C library has something called math@h. So if you include math@h on top, so the code looks like this now. And then in the main function, what do you do? Call square root function. So square root function looks like this, and then that. So if you want to store that square root to somewhere, we can make another variable for that. So what's the point? Code reuse. Okay, you don't need to write the code if there is already a function for that. Just use that, and that's very convenient. Okay. Well, another question is, how did you know, or how do you know? How do you know, the right way to call a function? Okay, there's three things that is important. Well, you have to give the right name, and you have to give the right input, and you have to get the right output. And types really matter. And then you could actually feed more than one input. In that case, how many input? So square root is really the one, but for the students who actually haven't looked at how this square root is used, you can do the man page. So just look at the man page. So man square root. If you type that, and then Linux actually give you some programmer's manual. So man page tells what? You gotta include math@h. And these are the three functions if you want to use square rooting. So here, the name is sqrt, name, and then what input is one thing, and that's the type. Type is double, and then you return, the function returns an object of type double. Okay, so those three things are somehow, three pieces of information is already, given this, and that's what's called function prototype. Sorry. Okay, function prototype. Okay, the way to write the function prototype is this: return type, name, and then input. Okay, again, return type, function name, and input parameters with the parentheses. So that's usually how to write a function prototype. And given this, you and also compiler GCC knows whether you're calling the function right. Okay, so let's take some example. So for example, let's think about this program, rect1. This rect1 is basically homework 9 problem, basically taking the height, width, and offset, okay? And you drew the rectangle, remember? The GCC rect.c, right? So rect, you do rect, height, 8, width, 3, and then offset 9, let's say 4. Then you have this like, what is it? Height 8 with 3 kind of rectangle. Okay. So let's think about like applying this concept of code reuse. So what do I mean by that? Well, similar code, if similar codes are repeated again and again, you can actually make a gadget, make a function out of it. So for example, I'll create a rect1 function. Let me just first copy into CP, copy the rect.c into rect1.c. So I'll work on rect1.c that I just copied from. Okay, so anyway, so what's the thing to do? Apply the concept of function. Like what are the things that is reused? If you look at this 3 things, you're taking height and then get the integer. So prompting like some string width and then get the integer. So it's really, you know, in a sense, prompting some string and then get an integer. So if have something like prompt function, so I'll call that function prompt. Okay. Something like this can be done. And obviously that's much simpler if you have function prompt. The problem is, do you have the function? Or is there any function to use? Is there some function called prompt that someone else did make for you? Unfortunately, it's not. But anyway, so our intention is like, what if there's such a function called prompt? I'll just use it, right? Okay, we have to change height to width and then offset. Okay. I want to just try to compile, hoping that it'll work. It won't work, but we will learn something. I think this is the error message we first saw in the exam, written exam, the last problem. If you see the last problem, one error message is implicit declaration of a function. What does that mean? You are using a function, but I don't know what this is. Yeah, and there's undefined reference I'm going to talk about later. But anyway, so what's the problem? Implicit declaration means like, I don't know what this is. So you got to let the compiler know, okay? How do you let the compiler know? Give a prototype. Give the prototype of function prompt. So remember, prototype is what? Return type, and then function name, and then input parameters, and then semicolon. That's the basically format. So what is the return type? Well, we are returning an integer, right? So return type has to be int, and then function name has to be prompt, and then input parameters. What is the input parameter? You are taking, what's the type? C string type, C string. And then you can just put any name for that input parameter. I'll just call that S. Okay? So you just give the prototype. So at least we actually fix the problem of this implicit declaration error. Let's see if actually we fix the problem. Yeah. So at least the first warning is gone. So that's good. But the second problem is another type of error message, undefined reference to prompt. So undefined means the definition of a function means like how it actually work. Did someone actually make it? Well, no one made it. We just refer to it. Like there is, we just let the compiler know that there's a function, something that looks like this. Please use that. And then GC's compiler says, where is it? I don't know. Then what do I have to do? What should he have to do? Well, we have to make it. Making the function or writing the function is giving the function definition. So usually you write the function definition below the main function. Well, main is one function definition. It's defining main function. Okay, the program starts with the main function, and then if you actually make some other functions, you have to define outside of the main function. You could be up above main function, but usually the way to write the program is give only the prototype, and then that's fine for in terms of like top-down design. Okay, you know how to use it. Okay, I'll just use it in the main function. I'll worry about the details later. So the natural way or the common way of giving the definition is after the main function. Remember, prototype is prompt. So how do you define a function? Just like when you wrote the main function. Okay, main function is really, this is really a function definition. So this is return type, and this is function name, and then there's no input. And then start with a curly bracket, showing how in detail the main function works. So just follow the same format. But in this point, we have like one input parameter called S. Okay, so this is input parameter. So when in the main function, when the prompt function is called with height, okay, this height input argument, we call something like this as an input argument. Input argument is copied into this input parameter. So there's a bunch of different possible input arguments. Height is one, width is one, offset is one. But in terms of function definition, we call that S. Whatever it is, the value is copied into the parameter S, and then function will just work with this parameter S. Okay, what is prompt do? Prompt function does, what the function prompt does is basically this, right? So you only need to change, not the height. Now this is what? Don't do have puts? Yeah, we do have puts actually. So we do have puts. And then I don't know what the thing is. It could be H, it could be something else. We're just returning something. So I'll just say ret. So read a number, print out S, whatever the input was from the to the function, and then print out S, and then read a number from the terminal, and then we're gonna return that value. Okay, so that value will be returned into the caller here. So H, what prompt returns will be copied or stored into H. What the second function prompt returns will be stored into W, and likewise into O. That's good. So we actually give a prototype, we give the definition. I hope things will be good. Let's check. Rect1.c. Oh, there's a problem. Yeah, it's not string type. Sorry, it's a C string type. Okay, it works. Okay, that's great. So let's move on, and then let's do some more interesting stuff. So now let's see the code with the lens of like code reuse. Is there any other like place where you can use this technique of code reuse? Yes, there is. You see there's a bunch of for loop and f put c, right? So what it does is basically you put blank O times, and here you put star W times. You put blank star, put like so many times. So basically, you could write a function like what? Print some character n times. And what would be the input? Input will be two things, right? The actual character, okay? In this case, this. And how many times? Something like this. So this will be replacing. So that means what? I can replace this into what? Cn blank O times, and then star W times. And then actually, we can actually do that too. U line one time. Okay. Make sense? So likewise, this can be changed into okay, blank O times, and then star one time, and then blank W minus two times, and then star times, star one time, and then star backslash n, new line one time. Okay. So I can erase this. Maybe this looks better because you're writing one row in a sense. Okay. And then bottom row is basically the same, right? So I'll just, I'll just copy the what you did the top row. Now the code gets really, really neat and simple. And it's actually easier to read, right? So now read the code. Prompt, 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 three prompts, and then blank O times, star W times, and new line one times. Do that for top row. Middle row is H minus two times. What do? Just write the row. Blanks and one star, and then blanks, one star, and then new line. And then do the bottom row. That's it. It's really neat. Okay. If you do that, what will be compile error? First of all, again, you will meet implicit declaration of error. Remember, now we have to give the prototype. Question is, what does Cn returns? Cn like returns nothing. So what do I put in the return type? You put void. Void is the special keyword when there is nothing, especially for the return type. So void is a special type that means nothing. So there is such a called void type. So you return void and then give the function name, and then what's the first input parameter? Especially, type is important. So character is the type. Okay, let's say C. And then the second one is integer. And then close the parenthesis and then semicolon and go all the way back. Okay. You give the definition. What do? For n times, okay, you put C to the sender row. Okay, that's what's happening. Okay. It works. Okay. Seems like it's working fine. Okay. There is one thing I want to also tell you. There might be a function that takes no input. Actually, main function in this case is one case. Okay. So I'll just make another function, new line. Okay. So instead of doing this, new line function. Okay. So now let's think about like what the prototype of new line is. Okay. Think about it. What would be the return type? Well, returns nothing. What does that mean? You have to put void as a return type. Second, function name, and then for the input parameters, just nothing. Okay, so then the definition of new line is basically simple. Well, let's just do this. Okay, you can actually call the function you already wrote. Okay, you can put printf or f put s. That's fine, but I'll just like to cn because it's cool. Okay. So if you compile that, it works as well. Okay. So far, what we talked about is this. So code reuse is the main feature of the function, and you're gonna love it. Okay. If someone else wrote it for you, use it. If not, you make it. How do you use it? Well, look at what to include, and then look at the function prototype. How do you make it? Give the function prototype before main, and then give the definition after main. Okay.